Welcome to the third ever episode of Enlightning. So glad to have everyone here, including you, Jessica Rose. I can't believe you're here. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Gosh, no, thank you so much. We were like, oh, hey, Jess, do you want to come talk about structuring learning? I was like, yes, obviously.
Well, so I'm brand new to DevRel and I'm new to Twitter. Like I didn't have an active Twitter account until I needed to for my job. So maybe I've been on Twitter 6 or 8 months, not very long. And
what
so
a time to join Twitter.
I know, right? So somehow I came across your account. I imagine someone I followed must have followed and engaged with you, and then it told me about it in my stream. But the first time you and I interacted, you might not remember, but you do this thing one day a week. You're like, okay, everyone, show me your weird stuff. Whatever you've saved to your phone this past week that's strange or any weird photos. I love those threads you do. So you happened to put one of those up, and I put up a photo of a booth that said potato sundaes were for sale.
That was you.
That was me.
So I think I responded, and can you describe for our lovely viewers what that means? Because I could not emotionally cope with that. I looked it up. I think I responded with an appropriate level of outrage, but then I spent the next 3 weeks talking to one of my Midwestern friends, be like, what's wrong with you people?
What? So I was on my way to a wedding in rural Ohio, and my carload of family was running early. And you can't be early to a wedding. You shouldn't be late either, but like you have a specific window you need to show up in. And so since we were running early, we decided to turn off the highway, do the no highway option in Google Maps. So that we'd be forced to drive down like rural highways. And then we happened upon a potato festival. And then we're like, oh, we got to do this. So And so then we saw a booth selling potato sundaes. And so what a potato sundae is, best I can tell, is like,
I'm just going to get mad again. I'm excited.
It's a potato dish that's presented like an ice cream sundae, but but where the ice cream is like mashed potatoes, and then all the toppings are like, so it's like gravy or bacon or like whatever,
or sauerkraut. No, I looked this up. I spent like a week mad, and like if you are from Ohio, or if you're from someplace where you're like, oh, potato sundae, like I absolutely respect y'all's dedication to starches, like absolutely respecting my heart for that. But as somebody who's very strongly affiliated with delivery methods for dairy fats, just it's like someone had slapped me. I was like, "This should not exist. This is abhorrent. I reject this with every moral fiber of my being." I was sort of low key very concerned about, and now I'm concerned about specifically Ohio.
And I mean, I live in Texas now, not that it's so much better, but I have not encountered potato Sundays before or after that. So if it is a really regular thing in Ohio, I'm unaware. But I would be very interested in foods presented as other foods. If anyone has any experience with that, I'd like to hear
No,
more
because
about it.
sometimes people do
Yeah.
those wedding cakes made out of cheese. Okay, so I
Uh-huh.
think I might
Yeah.
just have a difficult time with food disguised as other foods.
Yeah. Like, I need things to be what they are, please. People and things, just like straightforward, please.
It's been a real stressful couple of years, like,
Hmm.
just stop it. Is that true?
uh, yes, but yes, very much, yes. So
But,
speaking of, I
thank
think
you
this is
so much. Yeah, for just continuing to haunt my dreams. Every now and again, I'll be like, "Potato Sundays."
no nights. You're so I think talking about rough couple of years is probably a good time to acknowledge right now the conflict in Ukraine that is continues to be a very sad time over there, and having that sort of instability in your life, my heart really goes out to them. And I feel like it's important to mention that here, and amplify their voices and ways that we can help. And so that brings me to distributedAid.org. Will you talk about
Yeah.
that, Jessica?
So I'm very, very lucky to be on the board of a nonprofit that's got sort of a tech vibe to a non-tech problem. And Distribute Aid, what they do is they're sort of the conceptual middleware, the logistics middleware between, if you all are raising aid, if you're collecting food, or don't collect food generally, but if you all are part of a group collecting something in one country, or you're an NGO, getting it to people who are affected is often a challenge. And what Distribute Aid does is provide the actual logistics and oftentimes the shipping to get something into refugee camps or get something into a disaster area. I've been really, really privileged to do a bit of work with the team, and I'm just so impressed. And it's not just with Ukraine. They were really active in a number of really, really challenging, really scary recent world events.
That is such amazing work that you and your colleagues do, and thank you so much for that.
No, not a bit of it to me. I'm just the grumbly person saying, "Let's be realistic with the budgets here." So I'm the person who comes
So
in
they
once a
succeed
month or so to
despite you,
break some
is that what
dreams.
you're saying?
I hope so, where they're just like, "We wanna do even more," and I'm like, "Well, okay, let's think about sustainability on the team. Let's tone that down." So anytime you see them not doing as much as they could, that's all my fault.
So I want to take a moment really quick to acknowledge Tyler's comment. Hi, Tyler. Tyler's interested in building a light board at home and started looking at how to do it. The process seems fun and interesting. If you document that process, Tyler, I would love to hear about it. Um, I just there's a brand called Revolution light boards, and that's where I got mine, and I did very little of the
Oh, if you
construction
hear
on my
typing
own.
sounds, that's not me buying the exact same thing right now.
Yeah. And so I discovered your Twitter account. This is the first interaction you and I have had, two humans talking face to face.
Before this was all just outrage about potatoes.
Yes. And but I've admired your use of Twitter from afar for it can't be that long because I haven't been on Twitter that long, but as long as I can remember on Twitter, I think that you are great about being genuine, about uplifting voices, about being vulnerable and engaging, and just the right mix. So
Well,
kudos to
that's
you
very
for that.
kind. Like, I mostly just post my anxieties, so I'm glad other people like them too. I made them and I
Oh.
collect them, and I'm quite connected to them.
So then the thing that really drew me to you is the volunteer work you do with Free Code Camp. Will you talk about
So I want to
that?
be really careful here.
Okay.
So I run a reasonably large scale free boot camp. And we do use the free code camp curriculum with their permission, but we're
Okay.
completely separate. So Free Code Camp
Okay.
is a nonprofit. They're fantastic. If you have spare money, A, send it to Ukrainian like vetted Ukrainian causes first. B,
Uh-huh.
dang, send some to distribute, but also go ahead and send Free Code Camp only if you've got the money.
Uh-huh.
But they do this incredible work making this curriculum. But I just got together with Free Code Camp and Ramon, who's brilliant, and built on some extra supports for learners. So I think we had just a little hair above 15,000 unique learners in the last cohort.
That gave me goosebumps. That's so impressive and so cool to be able to educate people and enable them to get to break social class. Honestly, I feel like that's happened within my family in terms of learning tech, and it's so powerful.
And all credit to Free Code Camp has this great curriculum. If you've got folks in your life who want to learn to program, get them on that. It's a really great path into web dev. But the good people at Class Central effectively built us a whole cohort-based system to teach from. They're so great.
Well, that's wonderful. So, will you tell us a little bit more about you and your journey into tech?
Oh, yeah. I was a teacher for a long time.
Oh,
Started out in the
perfect.
States a long time ago and was an assistant teacher in classrooms. And then out to Japan and taught for a while. English is a foreign language. And wound up. That sounds very passive. But eventually got into the UK. And got this sort of janky job at a not especially auspicious startup.
Uh-huh.
Um, and one thing I noticed is that the programmers always got paid on time. And
Uh-huh.
they like some of them were in their 20s and talking about buying houses. And
Uh-huh.
they didn't seem that much smarter than I am. They were definitely smarter. But I thought I'd pick up some tech skills and see how that worked. And it's worked out really well. So mostly work in DevRel like yourself doing outreach. And these
Mm-hmm.
days doing a lot of sort of consultancy stuff.
That's
Yeah.
that's a really cool journey, and it's really cool that you see that and you take action. I like that a lot. And I pretty firmly believe that no one is people aren't smarter than each other. They're just better at different
Mm.
things. Or some people might work harder or smarter than others, but I don't feel like people are intrinsically better than anyone else in any way. So
So I
I would
this will
like to
get
just put that
messy
out there.
quickly. Um, but I think I would usually argue that the divisions between skilled and unskilled work or
Uh-huh.
valuable knowledge or valuable ability to learn and invaluable tends to be really artificial.
Mhm.
Um, so within technology, and I want to be
Mhm.
really conscious to say this without to not to generalize too large, but within
Mhm.
tech in many markets relative to other fields,
Mhm.
unemployment's significantly lower. For many
Mhm.
tech workers, salaries are higher than folks in other kinds of fields. And that's not
Mhm.
always the way. That's not true across different kinds of global markets. There's no sort of
Mhm.
salary equity globally.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily think that's because I don't think I am definitely not smarter than a nurse. I'm not doing more social good than a nurse. Ooh.
But well, I
Ooh.
guess it's like
Sorry, I got excited. I saw a question that's just just claws
Okay,
out.
yeah, we have some fun chat going on. We have Dan Vega saying hard work always trumps talent. And really my comment about smarter versus non-smarter, I think you saying that you are not smart, yeah, like is gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't like when people feel like they themselves aren't smart. So I'd say that I would say
I
that
think
you are
yeah.
smart in your own ways,
When
like
I was younger, I was I know
uh-huh.
things, and these days I'm just like, "No, I am a fool. I wander the world cheerfully, and one day yeah." So
Yeah,
it's more
yeah. I guess it's a line between humility and negative self-talk. But yeah.
yeah. And I live in the
Mhm.
UK. You have to do a certain amount of negative self-talk or they deport you.
And then we have this great question that's going to transition us into the Lightboard room. What is the best way to drive your learning if you do not have an actual use case to implement your learning in a real life project? So,
So this is exciting because I think I said to you backstage
yeah.
that, oh, you know what, early on, we really need to talk about motivation learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, oh gosh, are we going to the Lightboard? You have a
We
dedicated
are.
room?
You know what? This is different. I usually place the animation and try to run in there, but I thought we'd have like a casual stroll and
We'll take a
keep
look at
talking
some
today. Like,
art. Yeah.
yeah, I made some of that art. Yeah,
Oh,
and we have
impossibly
to walk
jealous.
through. Yeah, so this is the light board from far away.
Ooh, ooh,
Yes,
ooh, this is
so
unnecessarily
we're just
cool.
getting. So I have
Yeah.
the whole room of my small house dedicated to this. But
And these questions
yeah,
around motivation get real messy real fast, don't they? And I should
yeah.
say that my sort of keeping up with, I'm gonna grab a book. There we are. Me keeping up with educational knowledge or educational studies is something I'm not doing as well as I should. So,
Mm-hmm.
if any of you are current educators, please do have a snap at me if I'm giving you anything terribly outdated. But when we think about motivation, so how do I drive my learning if I don't have a use case or I don't have a real life project? And zooming out a little bit, motivation can be extrinsic. So somebody outside is saying, you have to do the thing, or I will give you more money
Uh-huh.
if you do the thing. Or it could be
Yeah.
intrinsic. You say, oh, dang, this is cool. I want to do this for emotional or personal or intellectual reasons.
Uh-huh.
And it's exciting because extrinsic motivation is often fear based, isn't it? Like, oh, I better do this or I'll get fired, or I better do this or something. But that doesn't always hold up longer term. So I'm so excited by this question we got. What's the best way to drive your learning if you don't have an actual use case or the chance to implement this in a real project? It
Uh-huh.
gets hard. We don't have a clear answer for this. So, how do I keep my motivation up when I'm not intrinsically motivated? I don't have a use case for
Yeah.
this right now.
Uh-huh.
Um, I might say focusing on, so you've got to do this thing or you want to do this thing. What
Uh-huh.
is your motivation? Being really honest about it. I've got to do this because my boss says so. Lets you
Mm-hmm.
say, cool, how much do you want to invest? How much can you, at that point, get by with? Is often where you want to
Mm-hmm.
go. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. So we got appreciation for the house tour, and then Cora says hello. Hello, Cora.
Oh, hello, Cora.
So for me, my personal life experience, my learning has been driven by habit. So
Oh,
I wake
oh,
up and then I study, and that's my habit, and I almost can't not do it. It's so deeply entrenched in my routine right now. So
oh, we're
that's
very
my
different people.
yeah.
Um, Mine is generally hyper focus driven and weird deep
Yeah.
obsessions. So yeah, so
Yeah.
the ability to
Uh-huh.
wake up every morning and say, "Oh, you know what? An hour I'm going to do structure." That's a
Uh-huh.
gift. What's it like to be one of the most reasonable people in the world?
I grew up with a lot of instability and emotional trauma, so I've learned to outthink my feelings basically. And so and then that and I've read like Atomic Habits, and I
Oh,
actually read the book Fluent Forever, which has to do with memorizing a lot of information to learn a language, but I've taken those skills and transferred them to cloud knowledge. So
let's talk
between
about
yeah.
yeah, let's talk about how language learning up. Sorry, I'm just pulling books off my shelf so I can hold them up while we talk.
Okay.
So I really like talking about language learning and how that's
Hmm.
applicable to technical projects or technical concepts. And I
Uh-huh.
think I might be cheating because most of the ways we're going to be talking about learning today aren't specifically wedded to technical projects.
Uh,
Um, oh gosh, oh, there's a lot of glare.
I can make
Kid
you the bigger
alone.
one.
Oh gosh, do you? Well, oh, that's a lot of me. So Kid alone is autodidactic, autodidactic. Done did taught herself, but one of the first really, really um, exciting modern polyglots. So she's
Uh-huh.
taught
Oh, cool.
herself. I think she was fluent. Whoa, what does fluency mean? No, no, not, 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 not.
Uh-huh.
In 11 or 12 languages and okay,
Cool.
at a handful more. But she really talked about embedding learning in um, actual context. And I confess that, so I do a lot of language learning myself. I copy a lot of her approaches.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so she did a lot of what we would now maybe consider extensive reading. So, say, just chill with reading material at the appropriate level.
Mhm.
Don't look it up. Don't take notes. If you don't understand
Mhm.
it from the context, it'll come up again if it's important.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of like this, I'm going to say vibes based learning approach, but it doesn't always
Uh-huh.
work for more complex technical concepts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Excellent. I relate to that. I do kind of just exposing, since I keep the schedule, exposing myself to the same concepts over and over and over again. Like sometimes I don't get it at all, but then on the third day I'm looking at the same stuff and it's starting to click for me. Yeah.
I don't have her book behind me because it's in the other room. I do have it.
Uh-huh.
But Barbara Oakley is a
Yeah.
neuroscientist who works in the space of learning and cognition.
Mm-hmm.
And she's this really, I'm gonna cheat. She came and spoke to my boot camp. She's so nice. With Zach Caceres, who does some work with her around how we learn programming skills.
Uh-huh.
But she always talks about how when you learn something in isolation, you kind of have a
Mm-hmm.
link for a chain. And what you need to do as you work with it is build that. So take that concept or
Mm-hmm.
take that fact and connect it to other things you know. Um, and she's always got a very good illustration of an octopus holding a chain, which I find much more menacing than it should be.
But yeah. So Tyler's been appreciating your book collection.
Oh,
Secretly screenshotted your background to see what you've read. Except not so secretly, am I right, Tyler?
someday I will have like a cup of coffee session and we'll do like a book club kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be fun. I'm
Yeah.
so in. Repetition is important both in learning and in comedy. In comedy, you repeat. Comedy.
Comedy.
All right. I've been kind of like wanting to take notes, but I'm not sure if we're still in conversation mode or if this is like,
Yeah.
if you
Well,
have, I
let's
feel
move
like you might
into
have a
like
little bit more
deadly
structure of,
serious mode. Yeah.
yes, no smiles.
Rrr.
That's me trying to be serious. It wasn't very effective.
So I thought we might start really, really wide and then sort of zoom in as we go. And I'm
Love
so
it.
happy, like if folks have questions or if folks are like, no, no, start narrow. That's going
Mm-hmm.
to be exciting as well. But one question I get a lot, especially when I'm talking to folks new to tech or sort of intermediate folks, is questions around how to direct your learning. So like what even to plan how you learn is a question
What
that
to
comes up a
learn?
lot.
Okay.
Um, and one thing I see that's really, really common, and it's much more common in junior folks and intermediates, is this very, very natural, and I want to validate this very, very reasonable, absolute white knuckle terror when you come into tech for the first time, or you come into a specific
Uh-huh.
tech space. So, oh, hey, I'm new to the cloud space, or I've just started to do a little bit of work with Suborbital, and they're absolute
Uh-huh.
sweethearts, and they're in the WASM space, WebAssembly.
Okay.
And if you were like, Jess, can you give me a 3-minute explainer? Like,
Yeah.
what's the deal with WebAssembly?
I don't know what
What are the
WebAssembly
technical
is.
merits? I would simply will myself dead. So it's a brand new. So coming into a new space like that, there's the very very reasonable paralysis of saying, everyone in this space is so smart, they know so much. Do I need to
Mm-hmm.
learn all of this, and where can I start with this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's overwhelming and sometimes feels impossible when there's like a new language is a great example and you don't know any of it. It feels, where to even begin? And then we have a good comment here from Psych Ferric. One thing is one thing is to just give yourself permission to learn. Of course you may stumble, but that's the point. Have and make it fun for you and laugh at yourself.
And
So,
I think that that's something, and I understand that this is really different from learners who might be from marginalized backgrounds. This might be really different from learners who have a really, really outsized financial or economic or security stake in
Mhm.
learning this and looking like they know. But for me,
Mhm.
where I'm at in my career these days, I'm much more comfortable saying, "I have no idea what's going on here. I am a very, very
Mhm.
cheerful idiot. Where should we start?"
That's what
And I
this whole
find that
show
being
is for me. This whole show is
yeah,
like, I want to learn cloud stuff. Come teach me. I don't know anything. Please help. Yeah.
you don't know any well,
I
fuss, you don't know
I
anything.
know actually I know a good number of things at this point, but yeah. But I want to make a safe space so if someone doesn't know anything, they can feel
Yeah.
comfortable. They're not going to be made fun of. We're happy to repeat. Yeah. Hmm.
Bob Ross vibes.
Bob Ross vibes. Yes. Mr. Rogers action up in
Yeah.
here.
And generally around what to learn, I see folks approaching learning in a technical space maybe from 3 different perspectives. So you've got the stuff that you are instructed to learn. Someone has
Mm.
straight up told you, "Hey, you need X."
Hmm.
And that's sort of like you just must. You have no I mean, Chomsky would argue that we don't actually have a great deal of choice under current economic systems, but your boss has told you in so much as an adult can tell another adult what to do. That you must learn Rust, for example.
Hmm.
And this is directed learning. There is a hopefully some kind of reward. There's some kind of extrinsic, oh, you'll get
Hmm.
a raise or perhaps some kind of implied punishment. Oh, do this or maybe you won't have a job. Nice and scary. But then there's
uh,
stuff that you want to learn for really, really, um, really practical reasons. So the stuff that unlocks rewards.
uh-huh.
I'm going to learn. I'm going to keep using Rust as an example because I don't know any Rust, and all the Rust people I know are unreasonably clever. So I assume it's a clever person thing. Oh, I see all these very, very clever and very cool people are learning Rust, and I know there's a lot of cool jobs. I'm going to learn
Okay.
Rust and get paid more.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know
a
what
great
Rust
reward.
devs make. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then there's number 3, I'd say, and, oh, y'all fuss at me if there's ones I'm forgetting, and that's stuff you wanna learn because it's cool or weird. Yeah.
Cool. Stuff you're interested in?
Yeah, I
Is
think
that the same
so.
thing you think? Yeah.
Yeah. And this doesn't always have to be and one thing I wanna be super, super clear about is your motivation is gonna be different for these different levels, but for myself as somebody who teaches, but this is gonna sound very cold and very I do not care. A lot of folks in tech will be, "Oh, well, you need to be passionate about what you're." No, you
Oh,
don't.
no, you don't.
Like,
Yeah.
no. You're like, "You need to be
Yeah.
passionate about your job." I'm like, "You can't make me." I am. No, gosh, I love teaching. Sorry that one need not be passionate about.
We have
And
a
this is oh,
yeah.
sorry.
A comment. I had the same question. Currently, technology is changing every day, and with so many options, it's difficult to decide what to learn next. That's a great conundrum. I think.
I've got really focused advice here. So
Ah.
the stuff I recommend learning next is A, slow down. You probably don't have to do it right now unless it's a number 1.
Uh-huh.
Um, but what to focus on next, it's either what you're explicitly being told to learn, what you're being
Uh-huh.
supported to learn, or what you
Oh.
have the most resources or personal interest in.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna
That's
abstract this out
great.
and talk about human languages.
Uh-huh.
Because it's a bit more tech agnostic. If I lived in Texas, and I say, "Oh, I wanna learn another language," um,
Uh-huh.
I think common sense for me would probably be to pick up Spanish, huh?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. It's going to have potentially the largest financial impact, so, like, many people I have the potential to work with might speak Spanish in the region.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have the most resources for it. There's going to be books in the library. There's going to be televi I was gonna say television channels. Cable isn't even a thing anymore, is it?
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be media and there's going to be other environmental Spanish speakers. And it's sort of the same thing for tech skills to say, "Okay, here's what you have to do. Ooh, I should learn that next
Mhm.
so I don't get fired.
Mhm.
Oh, here's what I have the most resources for. A lot of my best
Mhm.
friends are Java devs. I'm going to
Yeah.
learn Java next because they can lend me books and I can ask them questions. Or
Mhm.
what you're incentivized for is really important as well. If I say, oh, you know what? I'm seeing that a lot of folks, I'm seeing there's a lot of jobs that use React right now. Maybe I'm going to learn React next. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. I'm
And I'm
interested
always
to hear from
sorry.
chat if anyone has, yeah, no, don't be sorry. If anyone has personal experiences with these ideas or just in general, when you maybe are told to learn something, what's step two? Like, where do you go next if you're told to learn Kafka, for example? What would you do?
Oh, I was a literature major, so I was like, "Oh, cool." No, y'all mean
No, I mean event-driven event.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Event.
I was just like, "What a great example." Also still a great example, possibly much more relevant.
I think
Um,
both are relevant in this case. Mhm.
and I'm really excited because you specifically asked, "Oh, folks who are watching, how do you respond to people telling you you have to learn?" I'd be really
Mm,
excited to hear, like, how does that impact motivation for folks? When someone
yeah.
tells you, "Oh, you have to learn the thing." What's that like motivation-wise?
Yeah. I feel like I don't know, I'm a little bit bristly and I don't like being told what to do, so I feel like I might lose motivation. But maybe
I
I
think
don't
that's
know if
really
that's true.
yeah. Well, I mean, having been a teacher, that's, yeah, I would not place you alone there. While we're waiting to see if anybody's got any opinions, I wanted to go ahead and I've got another sort of blob of thinking. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this stream, I think I'm actually going to turn it over to you if that's not cruel. But in this middle
Oh,
bit, we
let's
can
do
both go
it.
back. Yeah,
In the
you love how
spirit of
I'm just
public failure, yeah, let's go.
so here we talked about like, oh, yeah, what do I learn? How do I learn? And I've really
Uh-huh,
woofed this where I'm like, learn what your boss tells you to, learn what you get
uh-huh,
paid for, or learn
mhm,
stuff if you've got stuff you care about, do it, do it, do it.
uh-huh.
What
So
about
you're
how to sorry?
sorry. Nope, you
No,
go.
no, no. I wanted to talk about like how to plan learning paths. And this comes back to
Oh,
is it Abhishek? I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, my love. Has asked a couple questions that really touch on this question of a learning path. So, how do I drive my learning in different situations with motivation? And then like
mhm,
how do I decide what to learn next? And one thing I see with a lot of learners is even more than how do I choose the next topic, it's how do I stay connected to that topic as I continue to learn in
mhm.
a learning environment which is rich with sparkling distractions.
That's a great question, and I like where this is going. I like Tyler's comments. I liked how my boss tricked me by asking me to choose between two topics. It let my brain pretend I was in control, but really it helped me to align my choice to my values. Do you know, my son's 22 now, but when he was a child, I remember asking him in the evenings, "Do you want to take a shower or a bath?" And so he felt like he had some control, but in the end, he's getting clean.
Were you
So
just like,
that might.
"Look, this is happening."
Well, you don't even say that much of it because they don't need to. Like all they see now is the choice, and they're going as a child. And
Yeah.
Tyler's showing me it's the same thing as an adult too.
And I think that ooh, gosh, that's a question we don't wanna get into, like, "Oh, how much choice do we really have in the world?" Like, no, 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 no.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like, okay, can somebody is it rude to crowdsource this? Can somebody pick a computer science sort of topic, if computer science or a programming topic, and we can take a look at how we might structure a learning path around that. Um,
Excellent.
this is going to be abstracted out, so this can be as difficult as y'all like. And oh,
Tyler Tyler says, as the new guy on the team, I also like to challenge impossible tasks that everyone else has written off. Excuse me, that's very different meaning.
oh, so let's Let's talk a little bit about this because so there's this concept in learning, which was specifically
Uh-huh.
targeted around language, called the zone of proximal development.
Uh-huh.
And this was I was going to say this is my boy Vygotsky, but I don't think he would claim knowing me. He's dead.
Zone of proximal? Is
Proximal
that like
development, yeah,
proximal? Okay.
yeah, Proximal.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
the
I'll write it.
deal with this is saying, and this gets really hard because everybody's bad at self-assessment. But if we say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here at this arbitrary point, and if I do tasks on my level or below, I
Mm-hmm.
can do the thing, but there's probably not meaningful learning happening. So it's good practice, it's good, but like if I'm doing stuff at my level or below, I'm not learning a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do stuff that as Tyler suggests, so Tyler's got like absolutely cast iron motivation, and that is not me. And that's
Uh-huh.
not a lot of people. If I go 3 levels above where I'm at now, I can't do the thing. It's not like the lower stuff where, oh, I can easily do this. I genuinely can't do something that's 3 or 5 or 10 arbitrary levels above my current skill set. But I'm
Uh-huh.
also going to get well demotivated. Vygotsky's sort of saying where you want to
Mm-hmm.
be is one level, one imaginary
Yeah.
conceptual level above.
Uh-huh.
So you're just doing a little bit of a stretch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. Um, so Rob says, I find it hard to begin learning a new technology. How should one plan learning and practicing a new technology? So since we haven't crowdsourced your answer from earlier, I think it's relevant to the show to talk about learning Kubernetes, because
Let's
Kubernetes
go.
is the pivotal cloud technology, and it is complex. It's monstrously complex, and it is really hard and overwhelming to think where do I even start?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, let's go ahead and map this out as though we're somebody who's never done any work with Kubernetes, and let's sort of build out a learning
Okay.
path based on this.
Okay.
Um, so, okay. First thing we're going to do is going to zoom out a little bit. What do I need to know about the larger ecosystem? So I might start with so I might go ahead and say, I'm going to sit down and collect
Mm-hmm.
3 or 5 or 10 introduction to Kubernetes resources.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So,
yeah.
so learning a new technology. So let's say AKA Kubernetes,
Yeah.
and here's our learning path.
Yeah. So the first, oh gosh, wait, should we talk about tooling for learning paths? Because I'm a nerd.
Sure.
Um, so I really recommend having a tool that you continue to come back to. And this doesn't have to be a specialized thing, but
Uh-huh.
when you learn stuff, you want a document or a series of documents to do a link dump or to track stuff or to see where you left off. Um,
Okay.
it's going to sound very cruel, but I do not care what your tool is. Oh
Uh-huh.
gosh, I hope this
So
isn't unkind to anybody who works on it. I hate Notion with the heat of 1,000 suns.
I don't know
Uh,
what Notion is.
it's like Google Docs, which I'm also not in love with. But it's like laggy and slow, and it kind of a little bit marked down, but not quite.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like Notion and you use Notion at work, perhaps that's the tool you reach for. Use that. Just anything where you've got folders, where you've got documents. I use something called Obsidian, which is sort of a locally type
Mm.
thing that feels a bit like Notion. But when I'm learning something new, I start a new project in Obsidian. Yeah.
So
Tyler
Obsidian,
makes
should I even write
yeah.
down Notion since you hate it?
A lot of people don't like. I'm just
Okay.
mean. It could be Google
I
Docs. It could be. Oh, do you know what I've got? Um, I'm one of those nerds who's. Oh gosh, I'm one of those nerds who's going to destroy everything on my desk. Everything's fine.
I use Anki. That's
Oh,
it's
Anki's
not, I think,
fantastic.
yeah. And we
Oh,
have Fluffy
space
Sysop is here.
repetition.
Hello. Hello, the Fluffy Sysop. Good to see you.
Hello. Sorry, I'm not having a very lucky day.
Oh, that's okay. Tyler says save button is what I call that. So your tool to track progress is your save button. Which one do you like to use, Tyler? All right.
Yeah. So I also use physical stuff. So I've got a physical notebook, which I hear is popular again. But yeah,
It does
having
feel
some
good.
kind of digital place to brain dump in. And that lets you sort of space stuff out. Oh, Tyler, using Obsidian as well.
Nice.
That's really
I'll have to look
justifying me,
into
isn't it?
that.
Um, but I really like Obsidian because it lets you embed PDFs and documents in a sort of doc type space as well as
Mm,
links. So the first thing I do when okay, I need to or I want to learn Kubernetes. The first
mm-hmm.
thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get an arbitrary number of what is Kubernetes or Kubernetes 101. I'm going to go get an arbitrary number of those and read.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get 5 or 10 or 9 and sit down with those.
Okay. So you said that's like learning the ecosystem, right?
So
What did you say?
I'll probably start with what is Kubernetes. I'm going to look for some beginner level so I'll Wikipedia is almost always one of those for me for new
Uh-huh.
tech. So I'll say I'm going to look at the Wikipedia article. I'm going to get
Okay.
10 introduction to Kubernetes articles. And what I'm going to do is as I encounter those, when I see them linking out to other resources that make sense, I'm going to throw that into the file, but not worry about reading them
Mm-hmm.
till later.
Oh. So
Yeah.
collect, don't read.
That's because it's so easy to be like, oh gosh, wait, no, this pointed me here and
Mm-hmm.
this. And after reading a bunch of introduction to the thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be taking a couple of notes, and the big kinds of notes I need are what are the terms I don't understand that come up repeatedly?
Mm-hmm.
What are the concepts? What is sort of the foundation knowledge that this assumes I have that I don't have?
This is great.
So Kubernetes is, for folks who haven't done it, it's an orchestration system that's open source, and it's a container orchestration system, and that's literally me looking with one corner of my eye at Wikipedia like a cheat. Um, and it may be that if I'm new to this space, I could say, cool. This says it's a container orchestration system. What if I don't know about containerization? What if I don't know what containers are? What if
Uh-huh.
I don't understand what orchestration means? So, really saying what kind of assumed knowledge is here that I don't
What
have
assumed no.
yet? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Because that kind of stuff can be so scary, right? Where you're like, oh, yeah,
Uh-huh.
everybody knows what a container orchestration system is.
Uh-huh.
Um,
When I
and
first started learning Kubernetes, I was learning like in a lab environment. So like here's some objectives and then here is the solution lecture. And the solution lecture used a bunch of command line Linux jargon that I'd never seen before and was very intimidated by because I didn't even know what it was. So I didn't know how to look it up or but I found that I needed Linux knowledge
sorry, that was
before I
very
could.
aggressive with my paddle hands where I'm like, but that's the thing where you
Yeah.
get to this and it can be so scary. And because you are multiple levels out of the zone of proximal development. And it's
Uh-huh.
what
Yeah.
the heck? And it's so
Yeah.
demotivating.
Yeah.
Uh,
We have some great notes from chat. So Tyler Bird says Rocketbook is good, which is so that's for
if
one of our
you're
tools.
into handwritten notes and you have a little bit of money or a birthday coming, because they're a little bit, I confess that I'm very into the remarkable tablets. You can get the
Oh
first gen
yeah.
used there, but they're very good for OCR handwritten notes.
And then Saurabh says, how do you identify the must know things when learning? So you've collected your resources and you're trying to identify what assumed knowledge is here. Do you have any tips for a little more granular, like how you would do that identification?
Yeah, and I'm gonna be mean as I talk about this identification because
All
tech is
right.
hard and teaching is
Uh-huh.
hard. it is so unusual to meet somebody who deeply knows the tech and who's really good at communicating these and like teaching these technical concepts. And
Uh-huh.
also, everybody, it's natural, but it's opinionated as heck, isn't it? Where folks
Yes.
are like,
Oh
oh,
my
what you need to know
goodness.
is no, what you actually need to know is this other thing. I look
Yeah.
for what common strings come up. So if this one guy, I'm going to use abstract names. If this one guy Jim keeps saying, "Oh, the really important thing in Kubernetes is how it works with Docker."
Uh-huh.
And then that's only Jim talking about this. Everyone else says,
Yep.
"Oh, yeah, it's really important to understand how it fits into the larger cloud native ecosystem." And
Uh-huh.
again, I
Yep.
know nothing about Kubernetes. I'm literally just
Yeah.
pulling words out. So if only Jim is saying this is a Docker thing, really, and everybody else is saying
Uh-huh.
no, it's about the larger ecosystem, I say, okay,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to learn more about the cloud native ecosystem.
Yeah.
So until you've got enough information to be opinionated yourself, I like to
Mm-hmm.
sort of chill out and go with the larger sort of crowd of experts.
So by collecting an assortment of introduction resources, then you're avoiding falling into the trap of getting caught up in what only one person thinks.
Like it doesn't, it makes you you're following the collected opinions of a larger
Yeah.
group instead of the singular opinions of somebody who's just very confident. It's not
Yeah.
bad
We
to be
have
confident.
a lovely comment from Bonnie. Hello, Bonnie. Welcome back. Not in tech, but this conversation has me rethinking my study efforts. I love it.
If
Thank
you do
you.
ever want to get into tech, come join the boot camp. It's free. It's only 6
Yes.
weeks at a time.
And and Tyler is helping to answer Sarab's question, saying going to a community chat room might be a good way to figure out where to start when trying to tackling a brand new thing like
And when we
Kubernetes.
talk about folks in tech being opinionated and making that more challenging, folks
Mm-hmm.
being opinionated also means that you could say, oh, hey, where should I start with this? And you'll get a bunch of people eagerly shouting, wow, this. So that the force of opinions can be quite valuable as well.
So I'm trying to make this like a path, having one
Solid chill.
step lead to another. Yeah, I want it to have a windy road feeling. This is what I want though.
So as you start to look at some of these concepts, say, okay, I see I've got sort of a word cloud is a very 80s sort of educational
Mm-hmm.
approach, but I've got some notes about these concepts that come up again and again. I'm going to read some of those. The really nice thing is you've said, I'm going to read some intro tutorials.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to read some about these concepts that it assumes knowledge from. By now, just based on the articles you've actually finished and what you
Uh-huh.
have notes on, I like to take notes as I go. Not everybody does. You're starting to get a feel for not what voices in this space are right, because I think
Mm-hmm.
right is really the right fit for you. But
Uh-huh.
like, who is working in the space or teaching the space, who's creating learning materials that works especially well for you? So you
Okay.
say, I'm going to start taking these intro tutorials. I'm going to
Uh-huh.
start learning these background concepts, and I'm going to start sort of link dumping the other stuff I put out. As you start to poke around in that link dump, keep an eye on who's teaching in this space, who's really, really valuable. Oftentimes, tech being annoyingly personality led means that
Uh-huh.
if you've got a personality that you jive with, who's teaching really well, and they're continuing to put out stuff, follow what they're doing. It's fine. Like if you're a beginner intermediate in this, you don't have to forge your own path. Say, cool. In this case, maybe does the Cloud Native Computing Foundation do a lot of Kubernetes educational material? Is that
They have some but when I tried to do it as a younger learner, it assumed so much about Linux that I
oh
like
okay.
it was too
Y-
technical for me.
Do you know what
Too
I
like
like?
tech speak.
That kind of
Yeah.
tracks, doesn't it?
And maybe I'm thinking of Linux foundations. Not CNCF,
Both of
but
them are
Linux foundation. That's
yeah, but
yeah.
like these foundations are pretty opinionated as well, and that makes sense.
Yeah. And I just don't feel like as a brand new learner, I was the target audience for their particular learning resources. They were assuming you already have a career in IT. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
think that's
so
a
for
really
the
good point,
next
though.
for the next steps, what concepts come up repeatedly and what assumed knowledge is here? And then that's when you're kind of maybe finding your favorite resources and
Yeah.
maybe starting to learn about the underlying knowledge, not even the technology yet, but the
Yeah.
underlying. Okay.
So keep a list of what concepts come up repeating, start to learn those. And then as you
Mm-hmm.
start to learn those, also start to pay attention to which resources are really valuable for you. If you say, oh, you know what? I like the Linux Foundation. I like the work they're doing, but it's a little bit too Linuxy for me as an early learner. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to put that away for now and I'm going to find another resource that fits a bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. Too resonant. Yeah.
And this is about when the next stage here is I like to write out some goals. You say, "Oh, but Jess, shouldn't we have started with some goals? What do I need to learn for?" I find that when you first start a technical concept, especially one as complex and exciting as Kubernetes, you often don't know what you don't know. So saying, "Oh, I don't really
Yeah.
have the knowledge to set good goals yet."
Mm-hmm.
Let's just noodle. Let's just explore these beginner tutorials. Let's look at some of the foundational knowledge. Let's see which of these resources really work well with me. Now it's time to sit down and set some goals and say, okay,
I want.
I want to, and you're going to have to help me here. What's a good beginner or intermediate Kubernetes learning goal?
Oh. Um, I mean, even just maybe creating a pod or
Yeah,
running an app. Yeah, creating a pod, running a stateless application on Kubernetes. In fact, that's our video next week. Is going to be we're going to have a guest on.
Ivy,
Who's going to
let's
teach us
let's
how
use
to
that as the
deploy a
goal then.
stateless. Yes.
Yeah.
There's,
So once you've learned enough about this, you could say, okay, my goal is I want to be able to deploy a stateless application in Kubernetes. I've done the
mm-hmm,
research. I know that all of those words are real words that
mm-hmm.
apply to this concept. And I've looked at some tutorials, and I know that there's a stream about that next week. I know that this is probably something I can do, and there's probably
I
resources for
wanna.
that.
So step 5 is define goals. I love this.
Yeah. And I like to set reasonably small chunked goals. And this is because humans, that makes me sound like I'm from someplace else. Humans are messy around goals. The reason we are rubbish at New Year's resolutions is they're big. So if you say, "Oh, I
Uh-huh.
want to be a Kubernetes expert," I say, "Babe, I mean, yes, I believe in you.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that's not a measurable goal. That's a long-term goal, and that's going to whoop you."
Uh-huh. So we had some great engagement from chat. I was so engaged with you. So
Oh, sorry.
yeah, Bonnie says thank you for the encouragement. The Fluffy Sysop says also don't be put off by negative opinions. Always bear in mind people approach the subject with their unique baggage and bias based on their own experience.
And the
So your
number of
experience may be
folks who are
different.
just chilling out online who are just like, "Well, you're wrong." I'd be like, "I obviously, like, but help."
um, And then just some conversation back to Tyler. Communities are a great way to collaborate and reach out for help. And once you're learning technologies that sit on top of Kubernetes, well, Kubernetes itself has a vibrant open source community, like a whole Slack workspace with lots of people excited to bring others into the fold. I like to ask the first question, the why question. Why some technology was built and what problem does it solve? I like that too.
And this can be
Um,
especially useful when I see folks picking up a new programming
so
language. This is a question that's especially useful. Say, "Oh, hey, why do people usually learn this language? Why was this originally developed? And why is it usually used these days?" Is really valuable.
yeah. So I'm trying to capture that here with the word context. So Rob's
And I think Abhishek has said the
contribution.
same thing in a different way, which is really prescient. It was like, "Oh, yeah. What did we first design this to do? Like, what was the
Mm-hmm.
intention behind this technology?" And is
Yeah.
understanding that an important step to understanding more about what's going on and what's possible.
Yeah. What was the world like before this technology existed and that
Ooh.
made it come to be? The Fluffy Sysop says a specific goal for Kubernetes would be to run the pet clinic application. It's just, and then Psych Ferric says, I found using the CNCF trail landscape map, albeit it can be initially daunting when seeing it the first time. It does give and show areas and vendor associations with cloud, Kubernetes from a high level, plus they have their certs and guidelines to aid learning. I do think those certifications are pretty motivating.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty demotivated. I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh-huh.
a lot of people are really, really certification, and a lot of employers reward you with them. A lot of, but
Uh-huh.
I'm just an old meanie where somebody's like, please pay me a bunch of money to do a test. I'd be like, I don't want to do a test. No, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I'm also,
especially if your goal is a job, then those certifications are a good
yeah.
stepping stone to get there. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to drop something into the chat myself. I'm not that into deferring to I'm not that into deferring to academia for what we should learn and how we should shape things.
Uh-huh.
One thing I really like is the open syllabus project. So if you're looking at something very, very specific like Kubernetes, you might
Uh-huh.
not get as many options on the syllabus site. But what they
Will
do
you
is,
take, oh, you're about to do it. I
oh,
was going to
sorry.
ask you to explain what it is. What is the Open
Yeah.
Syllabus Project?
So they take syllabi
Uh-huh.
from academic programs all over the world, and they say, "Oh,
Oh,
hey, if you want to learn about computer vision, here's what 17 courses on computer vision have for their reading list and their syllabus, and here's how they step through the material." So if
that's
it's something a
cool.
little bit more general, like a topic, they say, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
introduction to databases." Actually, let's go
Uh-huh.
ahead and check. Um, so I really like them because they often give you very, very academic, very stoic learning paths.
Uh-huh.
Um, but they do often give you like, oh, here's how people in academia structure this for their students.
I love that. That's so cool.
Um, Obviously, I'm not going to tell anyone to pirate any textbooks. But one challenge around this is that often the materials that Open Syllabus recommends can be quite expensive.
Uh,
Um, and they can often involve academic articles, which are
uh-huh.
30, 40, $100 a pop. I like to
Okay.
go ahead and warn people to avoid. There's this website called Sci-Hub that
Uh-huh.
publishes all of these academic articles for free as a
Okay.
terrible source of piracy. So never,
Uh-huh.
ever, ever go on DuckDuckGo and search for where is Sci-Hub now, because that would
Uh-huh.
just give you all of these academic articles, and you really don't need them in your life.
Just, yeah, yeah, that would
No,
be terrible. You wouldn't want to do that.
no.
I love
Sorry,
that
it's just always
resource.
me, like low
Mhm.
key, be like, "Have you considered crimes?" It's not a real crime. It's ethically okay.
I'm
Um,
gonna,
but yeah, open syllabus is just fantastic if you're saying, "Oh, I'm intrinsically, I'm in my heart interested in
mhm,
this topic. How do people?" And this is really nice as well because we often, whether or not we try to, we often
mhm.
give extra value to fancy stuff, huh? So if somebody's like, "Oh, I did computer science at
It's
Harvard," I'd be like, "Well, that's a serious person who does serious things." Um, and the open syllabus project gives you the chance to be like, "Okay, well, I'm going to look at what your syllabus was. I'm going to look at all of your classes,
Uh-huh.
and now I'm going to learn the same things." Yeah. Oh, here's a good question.
Okay. Are people still using books to learn? I like the book, printed books are now in quotes. Yeah. Do some people
Mhm.
still prefer that format? And then physical or ebook?
It depends. It's all about what's in your heart. We got somebody here saying, "Yeah, books, book, books." And like, I am very, very much a book in my heart.
Uh-huh.
Um, for me, and I think we'll get to this when we talk about structuring in, Tyler points out that there's a non-crime method to get journal articles. And almost
You
always
could
when you email a professor, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, here's this article." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't wanna bother them." And I mean, obviously don't do
you could
crimes, but
um yes, but that's it. So you could also contact the paper authors, the non-crime
yeah, and
method.
they will
And then
almost always send it to you.
welcome, Fuel Snable. It just came to my attention this week that Layla and I are on conflicting time schedules. So I don't know yet what to do about that, but I'm
Y'all are gonna have
sorry.
to fight it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I I don't think it's in my best interest to fight with Layla on
Yeah.
anything.
So
Not
define
that
reasonable
she's like
goals.
incredible. Yeah.
Oh. And then, like, do the goal, set a new goal, do the goal, set a new and then we've got sort of an infinite loop. So define small
Hmm.
self-contained learning goals, do them, and then reestablish new goals. So really define the goals, do the thing, set new goals.
Do the reasonable goal. I want to like
Yeah.
underscore reasonable. Yeah.
And my example here is I'm trying to get to a certain point in my second language. And if I just said, "Oh, I," and where I'd like to be is I'd like to be independently reading novels like a proper adult. And I'm stuck at comic books, I'm afraid. But if I said, "Oh, I wanna be able to sit down and read a novel," like, no, no, I'm just gonna absolutely whoop my motivation. But instead I say, "Oh, I'm going to do this much vocabulary work, or I'm gonna read this many comics," um, until I can move up to another level. Yeah.
I love that. What language are you learning?
Japanese. So I used to live out there a long
Cool.
time ago, so I sort of cheated with speaking of which, if there are any anime or manga nerds who have any recommendations, please, please, please. I'm reading, Demon Slayer at the moment, which a six-year-old recommended to me and is actually quite good.
Yeah.
It was
That's
very humbling
wonderful.
where she was like, "I can read it, you can read it." I'd be like, "Hmm, hmm."
I love that. No, I think learning from kids and yeah, I think it's wonderful because I mean, we're all a child learning in some topic, you know? Like you have to start somewhere. And if you have any ego around it, then that's just going to slow you down.
And it is quite easy to read. Like, she wasn't wrong.
Yeah. So my reasonable goals at first, just anecdotally, when I was learning Kubernetes, or as at first it was just like get some context, try to like figure out what problem it's solving, like, and but then instead of it becoming something huge like a certification, it became just like being able to speak Kubernetes because there's so much
Ooh.
vocabulary, there's so much, yeah, so many tools to be able to talk about. So I actually made flashcards of the Kubernetes glossary. So whenever a Kubernetes something comes up in conversation, I at least have some sort of sense of what it is. Yeah. And then I also,
Can we talk about spaced repetition?
yeah,
Because
yes.
you use Anki, right?
I use Anki. I have like
And Anki's
5,000 cards in my
fantastic.
deck by now.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
hmm
for folks who haven't used Anki before, what's Anki?
What's Anki? Anki, so spaced repetition learning is a type of learning where you are exposed to the same material over and over again. But apparently the neural connections in your brain get the strongest, the fastest if you're reintroduced to the material right when you're about to forget it. So in this flashcard deck, if I put in a new flashcard today, I would see it 10 minutes later, and then I would see it a day later, and then 3 days later, and then a week later, and that interval keeps getting further and further apart. And so I have cards in my deck now that I'm not going to see for, I get them right now, and then they'll come back to me a year and a half later. So I do like to think about the future Whitney who's going to look at that card. And honestly, I sometimes make joke cards for myself to see like a year
Oh,
and a
that's
half
so
in the future. Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah. But
I'm
it's pretty cool.
just Yeah, I'm just grabbing a link to Anki so I can drop it into
Oh,
the
wonderful.
sorry, folks
Thank you for
in,
doing that. Let's
yeah.
I'm gonna do that in the bigger view more chat. So across all
Yeah,
channels we have your
super
links.
chill, and Anki's really, really
Thanks.
cool because it's open source, it's free. If you're using a mobile app, it's quite expensive because it funds the open source stuff, but I really
Mm-hmm.
strongly recommend it for language nerds or for technical concepts as well. And when I say language nerds, I mean that in the absolutely most affectionate way possible.
You've been using the word nerd a lot during this conversation, and you use it in a loving way. I get it as a positive characteristic. Yeah.
And the exciting thing is Anki is, Japanese for memorize.
Anki. I have been saying Anki because I'm just in my own little island and I don't
Same
know.
thing, it's all chill,
Yeah,
everything's all
Anki.
chill.
Yeah. So
Um,
do we have any questions or comments at this point, or anyone's oh wait, Miss the Fluffy
oh.
Sifal had a cracking up about this non-crime method. Crime is an anti-pattern. Crime.
And really, isn't it? We could absolutely do a whole, well, what is crime except for calcified systems? And that's probably not a conversation to have on the work stream. We'll do it on a Saturday sometime. And you'd be
Heck
like,
yeah,
oh,
man.
um, so we've talked about, hey, how do I approach what to learn? And like this idea of learning paths. And I really like
Mm-hmm.
documenting this as you go with Notion or with Google Docs or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because this gives you a sort of a learning journal as well. So the ability to go back and
Mm-hmm.
say, here's what I learned. I am, well, y'all have probably already gathered that I'm exceedingly aggressive. I'm so, so impossibly aggressive about getting credit for what you've learned. So the
Uh,
ability to say, oh, hey, I'm able to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm quite good at Kubernetes now. Um,
uh-huh.
oh gosh, I said in the start of the stream, you can't really tell an adult what to do. And I was just about to, what you're going to do it. What I would love to kindly entreat learners out there to do is when you feel moderately confident, not great at it, put it on your resume or your CV, list it on
Uh-huh.
LinkedIn, talk about, and if you're trying to train into a specific role, one
Uh-huh.
thing I'm always really aggressive around is talk about the job you want to be doing in the current tense. If I'm learning Kubernetes because I want to be, I was about to say I want to be a DevOps. That's not a title. Because I want to be a DevOps practitioner. That's very classy. I'm not going to say, oh, hey, I'm Jess. I'm an aspiring. No, 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 no. Oh, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jess. I'm a DevOps practitioner. I'm doing a bit more learning in Kubernetes right now because I'm really interested about the space. And I wanted to talk to you about blah. Or, oh, heck, I'm interested in this job. But if you're doing the thing in your free time, you're still doing the thing.
I love that.
Well, because the big point I like to make a lot, which is infuriating with learning, is right now somebody knows half of what you do in any given area is making
Uh-huh.
tons of money and they sleep well at night. You might
Uh-huh.
as well be just confident enough to say, oh, hey, I'm a front end developer instead of I'm an aspiring front end developer. Like,
Uh-huh.
nobody's going to take you from you. There's no cops. There's no cops for front end. Yes, you can go to jail for stuff you do as a front end dev. No, no one is policing the title. It's not a protected title.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I guarantee there are people out there who know less than you who are using the title freely and without any guilt. Yeah.
yeah.
We have a lot of cool stuff happening in chat. Fuel Sneedle says any action not 100% dedicated to increase my happiness is a crime. Um, Lego
Oh,
Logic is asking, do you have a learning path for Kubernetes? Let's crowdsource that one. Like,
yeah.
what resources have people found that they like? I've been using the Udemy course by Mumshed Mohammed, and I've liked that.
Oh, and I love discrete courses like that.
Tell me, what do you mean by that?
So going on Udemy or going on FutureLearn or going on Coursera or going on oh gosh, do you know what? I am going to plug them because they're sweethearts. Class Central is actually a MOOC aggregate. So they have built us
Oh,
some functionality to let us teach on their platform, but mostly
uh-huh,
what they do is aggregate different courses from different kinds of MOOCs. You can say, oh, out of all of the different learning sites, who has these Kubernetes course and how good are they?
Nice.
But I do love these like online MOOCy things.
And is that an acronym? I'm unfamiliar with the
Oh
term
gosh,
MOOC.
so it's because I'm very old. So MOOC, they were all the rage back in 1990 something. Was it the late 90s? It was the early 2000s. MOOCs were going to be the early 2000s. MOOCs were going to be the future, but they are massive open online courses.
MOOC.
So they're these big semi-social courses, stuff like Udemy or Coursera. Oh, and actually, if I can plug something that's not mine,
Yeah.
Barbara Oakley teaches a course on learning how to learn on Coursera. And it's
Oh,
really one of my favorite courses. She covers
I'm
the same kind of stuff much better than I could.
I'm reading her book, A Mind for Numbers, right now. I have it on my e-reader. Yeah.
I know I
Midway
keep
through
doing
it.
this. I'm so sorry. You're never supposed to turn away from the camera, but it's just going to keep happening. Where is?
You need to be the big one. I'm going to say hi to some people in chat. Hi, Thendo. Welcome. Sorry I'm so late, says Thendo.
No
It's
hush.
okay. So Lego Logic 16 is interested in shifting from back-end development to a DevOps practitioner. Does anyone else in the chat have experience with that and who can help Lego Logic? Field Stable says, I am a COBOL developer.
Honestly, like there's only a couple people teaching COBOL skills these days, but one of the best taxi rides I ever had was I was talking to a cab driver in Miami, I think, who was like, "Oh yeah, I used to be a programmer back in the 80s, but no one wants COBOL." And I just made them pull over where I was like, "We're calling a recruiter right now. You will get paid like $4 grand a day if you write COBOL. Let's go."
Did that happen?
If you're a
Really?
COBOL,
Did you really like hook them up with a recruiter? And yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
Like,
that's so cool.
they were like a COBOL developer on really specific hardware, and they're like, "It's a shame that job doesn't exist anymore." I'm like, literally,
like,
someone
totally
will pay
does.
you to maintain the code you wrote back then. Come on. And they're like, "No, I mostly did banking stuff." I'm like,
That's amazing. Findle says platforms that are gamified helps to keep them motivated. So give me 20 points for learning this. Gosh dang it. Yeah. What are different levels of learning? Like Jessica mentioned practitioner.
And here, practitioner was just me using a fancy word for DevOps person. So somebody who works with, is it a sysadmin? Is that the proper title? Somebody's going to be getting mad because
I don't know about,
so
I can't
here I
speak
just
about
said
this
practitioner
either.
to mean doing the thing.
Yeah.
Like the question about different levels for learning. So at what point do you become an expert? Yeah.
Yeah. The fluffy sysop says Udemy Code Cloud CKA courses appears to be the best one. So that's the one I'm saying that I do also. Everyone keeps recommending it and our guys love it. Do your girls love it though? Fluffy sysop. This Kodashan, hello. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming back.
And I want to go ahead and stop at this next one for a minute because I think this is going to be the next thing we want to talk about.
Okay.
Which is how to structure individual learning sessions. Okay. Because procrastination, that's the thing, isn't it? Like,
so Findle is saying they're procrastinating about reading a book about procrastination. And honestly, this came up in a stream I did on Tuesday. My coworker was saying that she has the book Atomic Habits, and knows she needs to read it, but keeps procrastinating, making the habit to stop procrastinating.
So, and I think this is really valuable because, and I really, really want to stress this, and this is something I've stole from Barbara Oakley. So definitely chat, like take her course. But procrastination is a natural response. And we might think, oh, I just don't want to do the thing. But that is a natural response. Yeah, it is legit. That's how our brains work. And I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about structuring individual sessions because I think the way you approach it and the way I approach it, like you've just got this, like you're just a good and upright moral person when it comes to, like, we're not going to moralize learning, but if we were, like, you just wake up and you sit down and you do it every day. whereas I'm like a really happy chaos gremlin. And I think we're gonna have very different ways we have to structure our learning.
You sound like much more fun to hang out with.
If you wanna hang out with somebody who's always lost her keys and has to use a very rigid, system to get anything done, yeah, loads of
Uh-huh.
laughs.
Do I
Um
have enough space for the rest of your content? Should I maybe erase some stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we can do that, we've got that.
Or I can
Sorry,
use
I've
this
gone very
I can use this block in front of my face in the end.
um, well, because I think we've just got a couple little tiny tips around structuring individual learning sessions. Because I wanna hear
Okay.
about yours first. You just wake up in the morning and do the thing?
I wake up, so I like to read those well, I won't say self-help books because I like it when they're based on evidence. I like any sort of evidence-based book. So Mind for Numbers is what I'm reading now. I like Atomic Habits, Rest, Deep Work, Fluent Forever, actually How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like those have all been books that have I kind of changed habits accordingly. And so a lot of them, Rest and Deep Work and Atomic Habits, all stress that like morning time is when your brain is fresh, like, and so I'm like, for me the morning is like my brain is awesome right now. It's like a resource, and I don't want to waste it on something like looking at my phone or like or something. Twitter would be a so I like
There's
I it's
there's
like
there's no value there. There's
so I use that morning. It's important to me to use my brain in its optimum state. So a lot of times that's Anki cards. Sometimes it's like if I need to bang out a blog post or whatever, it might be that. But a lot of times it's trying to form the mental connections early in the morning.
So, if this sounds like you, if you're watching this right now, or if you're watching this later on, like, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, I could do that." Just do
Uh-huh.
that. Like, like, I can't. But like, "Oh, yes, I'm going to set a time every morning, and then I'm gonna go through the list
Uh-huh.
of stuff I've set, and I'm gonna look at my goals." Like, if that's you, I have no advice for you. Um, if you are also a chaos weasel, let's talk weasels. Uh
Gremlin. My chaos gremlin.
So, I have absolutely no ability to focus. I am a large child. I'm effectively an 8-year-old who gets to make all of my own choices. And that's not actually very conducive to learning. It
Uh-huh.
does mean that if I get really excited about something, I'll just do only that for the next week. So if anybody wants to talk about like the history behind the Demon Core or about autopsy practices in the 19th century, like, definitely your girl. Um, but if my boss says, "Oh, hey, we need you to learn WASM, to learn WebAssembly," I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm not gonna be able to just obsessively focus on this for 2 days."
Hmm.
Um, and you've heard of the Pomodoro technique?
Well, it's yes. Yes.
Yeah. So the Pomodoro technique is say and Barbara Oakley, when she talks about this, she says, "Well, anybody can focus for 20 minutes," and, like, not always me. But you said a reasonably small amount of time, so 25 minutes maybe. We're going backwards. Maybe 20, and you say, "I've got task. I'm going to
Uh-huh.
do learning task, study task. I'm going to do the thing for 20 minutes, and then I can go ahead and set a 5-minute timer, and I'm going to switch out of my focused mode into a diffuse mode, and I'm going to go make a cup of tea. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to look at some web comics. I'm going to chill for a second." And for folks who've got really, really active brain weasels, the
Mhm.
Pomodoro technique, like it's like a lot of neurodivergent folks really like it, either because
Mhm.
for those of us on the Weasley side, on the ADHD side, it's look, you just have to focus for 20 minutes and then you can have some
Mhm.
chaos. And for folks who tend to be very, very good at focusing, it gives you those breaks.
Mhm.
Um, I really so because I do tend to have very exciting periods of hyper focus myself. Oh, good, we've got folks who want to talk about the Demon Core. Let's
We
get through
ha-
the important stuff first, and then
we have about so much going on in chat. Yeah. We're
see,
gonna,
this is why I've got to
yeah.
carefully structure, because otherwise I'll be like, yeah, the demon core. They were using a screwdriver. For those of you, yeah, we'll
You're
do it in
like,
a second.
I'm really distracted. Demon core. Like you're so distractible. I love it. Yeah.
So this is absolutely what. So folks who are deeply distracted, I have physical books because they are not connected to the internet. I use a leech blocker
Ah,
system. That means I am not allowed to look at things. I've got a app that means I can't use my phone for 25 minutes if I've said go. And
okay.
sometimes I will physically remove myself from high enjoyment environments. So
Uh-huh.
I have this makes it sound like a miserable place. I've got a co-working space in an art gallery down the road. If anybody's
Uh-huh.
ever in Birmingham, it's Birmingham Open Media. It does work in the intersection of art and
Okay.
technology. They're cool. But there is a room upstairs that has
Mm-hmm.
nothing on the walls. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I just have to go to think jail and sit quietly and do the thing.
Think. Okay. Can we talk about chat for a while?
Yeah, because they want to talk about the demon
Okay.
core, and I'm so excited.
Cool. There's so much stuff. Okay. Uh uh Practitioner 20 minutes. Okay. Okay. So I think this is a Fluffy Sysop said there's a roadmap for DevOpsy learning. So like a site that gives roadmaps for learning various DevOpsy things. So that looks like a cool resource for sure.
Also, does the
And
fluffy sysop have just like an unnecessarily good headshot? Like that is nobody's supposed to have a good headshot, and I'm a little bit mad.
yeah, yeah, it looks like you could either hire them for your DevOps needs, or they could be an actor in your
It's
upcoming
very
film.
like I always look like
You
a
look
doofus in
great.
mine.
You look great in your picture, Fluffy Sysop. Tyler Bird, Whitney structure to make a habit, study a habit, put yourself first and do it at the best time of day for you. So they're saying any kind of, like some people it might be night and not morning, like for me. Um, oh, I love this so much. Thunderbird is offering to help Lego Logic with on their
Also
path to
using the
become
practitioner
DevOps.
language, which makes me feel real justified here.
Great job, you guys. I love that so much. Code with Sean Whitney, of course. I'll come back. You're great. Thank you so much. Yes, I love this. Another procrastination joke. I love that. Coffee helps my mental connection, says Code with Sean. And yeah,
So I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor. But for folks who may want to look at an adult ADHD diagnosis, if you find that, so one common thing that people report is, oh, it's a lot easier for me to chill out and focus after I've had a real decent whumph of caffeine.
uh-huh.
Um, hmm, hmm. It is
That's a
if
sign.
caffeine has sort of a counterintuitive effect on your ability to focus, like maybe.
Huh. Cool. And then Findle, shout out to Pomodoro method.
All the
That's one of
easily
those.
distract cool kids like it. I mean, I should add, I do not like it at all. I resent the Pomodoro technique. I hate my little clicky beat timer, but I work in a world where I have to work and focus. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So
Oh,
you
if we
found their strategy.
yeah.
All right, here we are, finally to your demon core. Oh,
So
demon core. Yes.
yeah. After the atomic bombs in World War II, which were, I would argue, a very bad idea, there
Uh-huh.
was one left over. They were like, "Oh, let's throw 3 of them out there." And instead they kept the core of it. And then some science nerds were like, "Oh, damn, this is really cool. Let's do some experiments and mess with it." And they had sort of a big tungsten base and then a dome over it. Um, and they were just scientists in a lab pissing about with criticality experiments. Like nuclear criticality, which really means what happens when this thing goes hella wrong. So they were doing
Uh-huh.
experiments to be like, "Oh, hey, let's not make the thing go critical, but let's like mess about a bit and like not quite
Whew.
make it go critical." And they done goofed, and the scientist who was directly in front of it, but in the first, and this is what's cool about the demon core, is the first time it killed, the
This
gentleman.
is real life, not fiction.
This is real life, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So
It's just
these
wild.
and this is at a university. These science dudes are like, yeah, cool. Yeah, you can give me the thing out of the atomic bomb that'll give me triple cancer. Yeah, put it in the lab. We'll put it on this in this dome. It'll be fine. And the dome's big on a table, just pissing about,
Uh-huh.
just messing. And the guy dropped it. So the scientist playing with it dropped it, and it went critical. And he put the dome back over it, and it chilled out. So he lived about a month, and the gentleman behind him got a bunch of cancers and lived a little bit longer. So at this point, one would think, oh, damn, let's not mess with that thing anymore.
Yeah.
But some other nerds were like, all right, so you got a spare core going. Can we have it? And they instituted and real fancy science nerds at the same org were like, you don't Richard Feynman was like, he didn't use this language, but he was like, yeah, that seems like a terrible idea. I think he might have been the one who said it's like tickling the tail of a sleeping dragon. I would have moved my office personally. But they instituted some extra stuff, and they're like, okay, well, we're not gonna like mess with the dome. We're not stupid. That killed somebody. We're gonna poke at it with screwdrivers, and that's what we're gonna do.
We're much smarter than those other
Like,
people.
we'll just poke at it with screwdrivers, and it'll be fine. And it wasn't fine. And there was a second episode of it going critical where they're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, now that guy's dead, and I love it because I make bad decisions, but I've never gotten up in the morning and I'm like, yeah, that thing that just killed a bunch of people, can you put it in my office, please? I'd like to touch it with a screwdriver.
That's
the fuzzy.
so. Okay,
sorry.
no, you can. I was just gonna say that I think a big part of learning that we kind of touched on before is embracing failure and just like
not that much.
Demon Core has gone too far. Yes. Okay, what were you gonna say? You were excited about somebody's comment.
Oh gosh, like I'm consistently excited. We've got a bunch of other people who are like, I've read about this. I'm like, yeah.
Demon Core. Oh, Fuel Snable's letting me know they're hi Fuel Snable over here for a minute. Tell Layla hello when you go back over there next time. Oh, and then Code with Sean is saying nice things that can't get anything else done. So start your Pomodoro timer after the stream's over, Code with Sean, and then along the road. Thunderbird is talking to Lego Logic about yes, I love this very much. This connection warms my heart. Feels like we have a fellow get lost down the Wikipedia well person. Is that you?
So yes. The only thing I love more than Wikipedia stuff is swapping over to the talk articles and reading the drama about how the article got written. Like if you because it's like real excited people arguing about stuff. And I love internet arguments that don't involve me. And I love weird stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of weird stuff, I bet, have you heard of the search engine called Margina Leah? I think you would love it. Okay. Margina Leah is a vocabulary word for the notes you make in the margins of books. Yeah. And so Margina Leah is basically the anti-Google. It's like it takes your search term and then it just scours like the bottom of the internet for it and brings you the worst results first. Nothing, there are no pictures. Yeah. And you just find some of the strangest stuff on there. It's really fun. Margina Leah. Okay, Demon Core, Plutonium Core that killed a few people. That's the one. Using a screwdriver to hold apart 2.5 spheres of plutonium is an ANSI pattern.
Like even the first dudes who were like, yeah, let's get this in the lab. I'd be like, no, babe. Like, we just had a real big field test of what this stuff does. Don't like put it Yeah.
For some, the desire to be remembered outweighs the attachment to your current physical form.
Because
It seems
like
based on this.
my understanding is that for the folks who were indeed who indeed passed due to the like that doesn't seem like a like that is not a soft and gentle way into that good night.
No. But if you're gonna go honestly, like bam, and you never knew it is probably the way,
Mm.
right? You didn't see
Oh
it
no,
coming.
like they stuck around for a while. Like it's just
Oh
bad
yeah,
for
you said it was like a month. You said a month later. That
yeah.
does seem
Yeah.
terrible. Yeah. Anyway, that's dark. Oh, and Findle's talking about the experience on Wikipedia. Like, oh, that's interesting. Right click, new tab. And code with Sean. That is a lie I'm telling myself about just being here a while. 50% of the Pomodoro process, right? Yeah. Uh,
And I'm
that's
so sorry. We came in to talk about
this
technical
is.
process, and I'm just like, who
Uh
wants to talk about nuclear accidents and hubris? Um,
huh. When you stop a prompt critically events with your hands, that's not a happy flow.
I
Yeah,
mean, like,
permanent.
good
Doing it.
for the guy who dropped it to fix it, but at the same time, I mean, he knew he wasn't going on vacation again after that. You might as well.
Yeah, and you have the permanent shadow of the last person who handled it on the wall. All
Was it in
right.
the same lab? Ooh, no, I'm not looking it up right now. I'll do this later.
Okay, I think we need to. I just
Yeah.
I'm enjoying all this chat, but I think we probably should move on with our
Yeah,
learning.
I mean, really, so far and it's very topical, isn't it, to be like, "Oh, let's talk about, like, nuclear accidents," like, everything's fine. If you all want a small, obsessive fun fact that is far less distracting, almost all species of
Yes.
manatees are no longer endangered.
Oh,
Um,
that's
and that's my
wonderful.
back pocket thing for when things are very, very scary. So back in sort of 2017, 2018, they've just been having a real good run. They've just been, like
Yeah,
it's been good for them for a while.
I'm delighted by both the fact and the strategy you have to bring a soft environment back
Yeah.
after stuff's gone dark.
A lot of the stuff I like where I was like, "You wanna talk about, like, nuclear disasters? Okay, cool. Hey, do you know there's a type of kitten that" like, you just gotta
You got a voice for it too, like a really happy, yeah, soft,
it makes
yeah,
it far more
voice.
unsettling when you're like, "Hey, have you" Hmm, hmm.
All right. So do you have more? Do we need to say more about the way to structure study sessions or is,
So, I think I'd probably just agree with other folks have said. So you've said, "Mornings are work for me." Um, for folks who do have a really challenging
mm-hmm,
time with focus, the other additional tips I've got are sometimes introducing moderate amounts of activity can be really useful as well.
mm-hmm,
If I have, oh gosh, if I have a passive learning environment, I've got to read a thing or watch the thing. Physically
uh-huh,
taking notes can often help. Having
mm-hmm,
little fidget stuff to keep me um, doing something with my hands that is not the keyboard can be a very safe way to do it.
mm-hmm.
Um, and just spoiled enough where I set up a treadmill desk recently and found that's been really, really nice for
Ooh.
focus. Yeah.
So
So
fidget spinners. I'm just gonna write fidget. And
yeah.
then write note taking.
So the big thing I really want to push is that for folks who do have a really challenging time focusing, it's not the end of the world. Um, and it might be wishful thinking. I really, really like having a little bit of a chaos gremlin brain because it does mean that when
Mm-hmm,
something strikes your fancy, you'd be like, hey, let's talk about embalming during the Civil War. It's only going to come up
uh-huh.
twice in your life, but it'll be really cool when it comes up. And those beautiful rare moments where when the stuff that's valuable for you professionally or academically overlaps with your weird interests, it gives you a superpower.
Yes. And I think having a breadth of knowledge helps you make connections. Like there are a lot of times I'll be like rock climbing and then something that's happening there is like, oh, that's like this over here. Like making connections from like seemingly completely disparate things is a really
And this
cool
is a
and
point
fun
I've seen
thing.
made a couple different times in a couple different places. It says not necessarily just in computer science, but across a range of different fields. When we
Uh-huh.
see these completely breakthrough new jumps, that they often, so we will often see sort of the young genius trope, or they often come from people who've transitioned from another field. And that's
Mhm.
often getting just enough experience to make really, really interesting conclusions, but being fresh and new enough to a space to say, "Oh, I'm going to ask a question that would seem too basic or too wrong." So to be able
Uh-huh.
to draw on experience from other fields or other areas is so
Uh-huh.
valuable to making big, weird, baffling jumps.
Yeah. And I love when asking those questions that seem wrong is a really scary thing to do. And I admire when people are like, wait, what is this? Why is this underlying thing? Even if it is something that's very clear and you take the time to explain it, that is a small price to pay for the times when they're questioning something and you're like, whoa, why is it that way? Yeah.
And sometimes, because if somebody had like, if a grad student come into the lab and be like, why are you poking that with a screwdriver? That seems extremely wrong." Um,
Yeah.
would have been in hindsight, extremely absolutely the right decision, wouldn't it have been? To be like, that seems like a terrible idea."
This has been so fun. I'm getting some wrap up vibes. Is that
Yeah.
happening?
Well, I
Okay,
mean,
yes.
I'm definitely gonna go look up some more about nuclear accidents, which is a very, very valuable way to spend a Thursday evening here in the UK.
Cora says, gotta go, but great conversation. Bye,
Yeah.
Cora. And Fuel Sneeble says, we need some fresh new questions when it comes to fundamental physics. I
Ooh, oh
agree. I think,
no! Am I gonna be focusing on the basics of fundamental physics for the next 3 days? Thank you very much.
so as a wrap up, what I've like to do is kind of go over everything we talked about
Yeah.
today and maybe get some takeaways. So, so if you're thinking of learning a new thing, the first thing to think about is what do you want to learn? And so those might come from three different places. You're probably going to want to learn stuff you're told to learn that you need to learn for work or something. You'll probably want to learn stuff that unlocks rewards, whether that's a bigger paycheck or whether it's Spindle's learning platform where you get 20 points or whatever. Um, or you're going to want to learn stuff that you're interested in or any other valid reason. And then it's like, well, what do you want to learn next? Like there's a world of stuff to learn. How do you decide which is the thing you're going to focus on this time? So again, probably what you're told to learn. You're probably going to learn something what you have abundant resources for right now at your fingertips. And then you also are probably going to prioritize something that has a personal interest for you. And then this we talked about this later, but the zone of proximal development, which is just learning just what's barely out of your reach. So you're stretching, but you're not so far that you're demotivated. Yeah, that you're overwhelmed. So we talked about learning a new technology, and we decided to frame this in Kubernetes. It's a very large, overwhelming thing to me, akin to learning like a whole new language, especially coming at it knowing nothing like I did. So number one, choose a tool to track your progress. So we have a bunch of examples: Obsidian, Notion, Google Docs, Anki, a physical notebook. I feel like one more came up during the conversation that I didn't write down. Tyler said it. But then, so after you have chosen your tool, then you're going to collect a lot of different intro resources on that subject so you can really get context to what it's about. It's also probably important not to trust one author on what it is you need to know. Like, try to get a sense of what the community is saying you need to know and not what one content producer is telling you to do. That also is going to give you context into what concepts are coming up repeatedly. I should probably prioritize those. What assumed knowledge is here that I don't know about yet? So for me, when I was learning Kubernetes, I was seeing Linux and I'd need like, oh wait, before I can learn Kubernetes, I need to know my Linux basics. And so maybe so start learning that assumed knowledge before you get on to the main concept. But the idea with these stages is at first you don't know what you don't know. So you're trying to get a sense of first just learn what you don't know about something. So is everything sounding good so far? Yeah. Okay,
This
so
all
then
makes
you so
sense to me, yeah.
so or I guess of course it makes sense, but is it capturing the spirit of what you were hoping to teach today? Is
I
what
mean, this is far more organized than what was in my head. I would have never gotten here on my own. It would be 4 hours later, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, let's talk about failed polar expeditions." And you've just been like, "No, no, no. Here's how we structure a learning path."
But isn't this? I don't feel like it's a collaborative between us, but it's also chat. Like some of this came from y'all in the chat. Like I feel like all of us here today made this together. I have no sense of ownership over it. It's a big collaborative happy object. So we're learning underlying knowledge, so that Linux for me, paying attention to resonant resources. So if there is a particular teacher or resource that's standing out to you as that you like, then you can follow their learning path. But maybe give it some time and try out some things before you settle in on one direction. So now that you have this context, you have learners you like, you know what you want to learn, you have better. Now it's time to set a goal, which is kind of counterintuitive because you think you want to set goals up top, but taking some time to learn and explore before you set the goal is good. And not only are you setting a goal, your goal's not like I want to learn Kubernetes, which has been my goal for over a year now. Instead, you're going to be like, I'm going to learn about pods. Like you're going to set a reasonable goal, something according to your proximal development. So something out of reach, but only just. Yeah. Yeah. And so then you do the goal and then you define a new goal and you repeat and repeat and repeat. So talking about the job you want to be doing in the present tense, I liked that a lot. I am a Kubernetes practitioner, right? And then we talked about how to structure specific study sessions, and you recommend your gremlin, chaos gremlin recommends the Pomodoro technique, setting a timer, and then after that timer, then you get a break and or a reward, and then moderate physical activity can help focus. And I actually identify with this. Sometimes I crochet if I'm watching something passive. I to keep my and I don't know
So
how
one
to
thing
crochet anything except the longest scarf. Yeah.
So one thing I always also wanna talk about when I talk about focus specifically is I always wanna give people more of a break than they feel like they deserve. So,
Yeah.
your boss is
I
gonna
think
disagree
that's
with me. Not your boss, one's
yeah.
boss. Um,
Uh-huh.
but most people have maybe 4.5 hours of reasonably good focus a day.
Yeah.
And if you've got 4 hours of meetings a day,
Mhm.
the idea that you are expected to, like, be functionally productive alongside those is quite challenging.
Yeah.
I
That
don't think
rest book really the book called
sorry.
Rest that I read has that same said that same fact and is yeah, I like it a lot.
I also really recommend, Laziness Does Not Exist, because it quite,
Yes.
oh, I thought you were gonna get it as well. I'm like, "Yeah."
Oh no, I was gonna make you big. I was thinking about making you big
Oh,
and then yeah.
somebody's asking in here, what about 7.5 hours of meetings? And I know you are not in Europe because that's a full work day. I'd walk away after that, be like, "Here's what we did today. I was in meetings and then I had lunch. Good day." Like, that's I don't like your job. I'm so sorry. I've only digitally met you, and that's very unfair to say. 7 that's too
So I want to say being kind when it comes to breaks is great. And I want to add to that, like being kind just with yourself emotionally, if you don't always stick to the exact schedule that you meant to, that's okay. Like I would emphasize progress over completion. Like daily progress, whatever that looks like, is something to be celebrated. And so I just think be kind to yourself as you're learning and you'll be motivated to keep learning as opposed to being judgmental.
Yeah,
I think that.
all very
Um,
chill.
so let's catch up on some comments. Fendel, will you give me context about recommending
Nope.
something
No, no, no.
about
You don't
no?
don't ask for any context. It is,
Okay.
sorry,
Oh,
it's
okay.
coming
Never
back to
mind.
sort
Go
of
away. Go
demon
away.
core type stuff.
Okay.
It's an
And
interesting thing that happened, but it doesn't make the world brighter and warmer.
okay. So
I mean,
our friend
technically warmer, didn't it? Oof.
our friend Fuel Snable is talking about the 7.5 hours of meetings. What country are you in, Fuel Snable? But that is thankfully a previous job. So now they don't have too many meetings. And that was the reason that you quit the job.
Right. And
Um,
you were saying this was in
yeah.
Norway. That's I mean, I've never worked in
It's
Norway,
just,
but that seems like too much workday for Norway. That's no that is not me trying to disparage y'all's work ethic, but like that's a full 8-hour day just in meetings and then getting a sandwich. No, thank you.
I think we've come to a natural conclusion for this
Yeah.
stream. This has been
Thank you for being
wonderful.
so patient with me just being all over the place with weird and delightful things. And I will look forward to bothering you again sometime to talk about something else that is hopefully much more wedded to technical topics.
Oh, and even if it's not, I really enjoy this time together, and I'm happy we spent it this way.
And the
And
folks who've joined us are so lovely. I did not
mm-hmm.
I mean, I should have expected other people who are like, "Yes, I'm also interested in weird disasters." It's nice to see it's not just me.
We found our people. Yes, thank you to everyone in chat and to everyone who watches the recording. Thank you to the people who come week after week. I appreciate everybody so much. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye, my loves.